Welcome back, everybody. We are here from the Coastal Seafoods Production Kitchen again today, and we've got some fun stuff planned. You can see we're going to do a little bit of a different format today in honor of our good friend and one of our favorite YouTube channels, Binging with Babish. We're going to do kind of a hand style video today, and we are going to be making sushi, which is going to be a ton of fun. If you've ever taken one of our sushi classes before, some of this will look familiar. If you haven't, this is what you'll be missing out on. So we're gonna have some fun. I've got all of our stuff set here ready to go. We've got our cucumber for some of our filling. We've got some beautiful salmon. We've got our sushi rice, our condiments and our rice seasoning, nori, the bamboo mat. We've got everything and we're gonna have a ton of fun. So I'm gonna show you kind of step by step how to walk through all of this. That should be a good time. So first things first, let me remove some of these things from my station. And don't forget, if you have questions or anything like that, please feel free to let me know. I will be happy to address those and answer things to the best of my ability. So, make some space here. That's what I'm going to start with, is the cucumber. Actually, first, let's do our rice. So, the rice, as you may imagine, I have cooked off already. First thing you want to know when you're making sushi rice is you want to make sure you're buying sushi rice. You don't want to be trying to use any other kinds of rice for this. And I've gone ahead and cooked this off already. The rice that I use is a Cocoa Rose brand, which we do sell. You can order it online right now. In fact, everything I'm using today, I think except for the cucumber, you can get online. So, before we get into the rice, one thing, again, want to make sure that our hands are all clean. So I've got my hand sanitizer. I'm going to get all cleaned up, scrubbed up. I washed down, and we are good to go. So I've got my rice here. Again, it's all cooked, but as of now, it's unseasoned. So what we want to do is use our sushi rice vinegar. This is great stuff. This is pre-seasoned. You don't want to be using regular rice wine vinegar for this. You want to get the seasoned sushi rice vinegar. This has had some sugar added, some salt, things like that, and this is what you need to use. So you don't need a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically use my spatula to help disperse some of that vinegar along there. And I'm really just going to use a couple of tablespoons here. You don't want the rice tasting like vinegar. You really want to taste the rice itself, but you also want to have a little bit of that sweetness. It's going to help accentuate the flavor of the rice and pull out some flavors from the fish as well. So we've got this looking pretty good. And the way to know is to taste. So you want to take a little bit of your rice, taste it. Again, shouldn't have a strong vinegar flavor. Should be pretty mellow. But that's it. That's all there is to it. So again, for this rice, I cooked it off ahead of time basically, you start your rice with your water. So it's 1 cup of rice to 1 1/4 cup of water for this particular brand of rice. You always want to make sure that you're checking the brand recommendations. Brought that up to a boil, let it simmer for 10-15 minutes until the water was mostly evaporated, and then I took it off the heat, covered it, and let it just steam the rest of the way through. So that's our beautiful sushi rice. This looks great. I'm going to set this off to the side while we prep our cucumber. So when prepping vegetables for your sushi, you want to make sure that you are starting with a sharp knife. Again, sharp knife is important anytime in the kitchen, but it's extra important when you're making sushi. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to nip the ends off this cucumber, and I'm going to cut it into planks, like so. So I'm going to take this edge off, and then you can kind of cut these as thick or thin as you want. I tend to like them a little bit on the thinner side because I really want the fish to be the star of the show, not necessarily the cucumber. So we've got our planks cut like so, which is exactly what we want. And I'm going to stack them together like this, basically reassemble that cucumber, and then cut down lengthwise. And keep your fingers curled and protected, like so. And now we've got our cucumber that's ready to go. If you have a cucumber that's really seedy, One of the things you want to do is maybe remove the seeds first, because you don't want all that excess liquid getting into your sushi and maybe ruining the roll. Liquid is both your best friend and worst enemy when it comes to making sushi. So you have to be very, very, very careful there. Next thing I'm going to do is prep my salmon. So this is a beautiful piece of our Nordic blue salmon. This would be a great time to use Ora King though. Ora King is just a beautiful, beautiful, fatty, farmed king salmon that is perfect for sushi. It is frequently referred to as the Wagyu of the sea. If you are beef fans, you'll know what that means. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fish and I'm going to remove the skin by just taking my knife, making a little cut, and going just along that fillet there. It's perfect. I'm going to take this, move it off to the side. Now I've got my salmon. Now one of the things when you're making sushi is sometimes when you remove the skin, you'll see this brown meat on the bottom. That is not a super big deal, but sometimes it's good to trim it off. Some people who complain about salmon tasting fishy, that's the problem, is this fat has a little bit of a stronger flavor. So if you want to keep it mellower, definitely go ahead and just trim some of that off. Again, it doesn't matter if you get it all off or not. It just sort of helps keep it nice and fresh tasting. So just gonna go ahead and trim some of that away. Be very, very careful. And now I've got most of that removed, so this is fine. I'm gonna nip off just a little bit more of this tail piece. So any scrap that you wind up with, save, and you can use it to make poke, which is always a great way to do sushi. So for my rolls, what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna kind of slice this in half, and I'm gonna slice this into kind of planks that I'm gonna use for my sushi rolls, like so. So this is perfect. We'll get a couple good rolls out of this. Now I'm just gonna set this over to the side right now. And that'll be set and ready to go. Perfect. Next thing we wanna do is get our nori ready. Nori, if you've ever had sushi, is the seaweed that we use to wrap with. When you get your nori, you want to make sure that you're getting a pre-toasted nori. The nori that we sell is ready to go, so you are good there. So we just got to open the pack, which is sometimes easier said than done. And I'm going to remove a sheet. So nori has two different sides. It's got this shiny side here, as you can see, and it's got this rough kind of textured side. When you're making sushi, the shiny side is always gonna go out, and the rough inside is gonna stay in. And usually when you get a sheet of nori like this, it's gonna be too big. What we're making today is generally referred to as Futomaki, which are the bigger size rolls that you might be used to. You know, your spicy tuna rolls, things like that, are generally considered Futomaki. Regular maki is it's a smaller size roll. And if you were making that, you would probably just cut this in half and use each sheet. And just use a little bit of fish or a little bit of vegetables, and that'll get you your smaller size roll. But again, for the Futomaki, these sheets are gonna be a little bit big, so I'm gonna trim about 1 inch off the top. Now you can save this as a snack, you can use this for garnish, you can put this in a poke bowl like so, you could slice it up and use it to sprinkle over some miso soup. It's just a lot of different ways you can kind of go about that. I'm gonna go back to my bamboo mat. This is not necessary for making sushi at home, but they are handy. They help keep your roll nice and shapely. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this down, and I put my nori on top. Now is where we get to some of the tricky parts, which is the water. Water is necessary when making sushi. It's gonna help prevent the rice from sticking to your hands, which is key, because if you're putting the rice down and it's sticking, whenever you move your hand off, you're gonna pull away a big chunk of rice. And you could wind up ripping the nori that way. So you wanna be very, very careful. So again, we need our water, and I've got my rice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip my hands in the water and rub together like so. I don't want my hands wet, I just want them kind of damp so that the rice doesn't stick. And I'm gonna take kind of a handful of rice, like so, and prop it down. Now I want to push the rice to 3 of the 4 sides. I'm going to leave about an inch opening at the top, and I'm just going to spread this out like so. We also don't want to make too thick of a layer of rice, otherwise we're going to wind up with a really thick roll. And the thicker the roll is, the harder it is to actually roll. So you have to be a little bit careful. Same is true with the filling. You want to be very, very careful about that. And you want to make sure, again, to not get that nori wet, because if the nori gets too wet, it's going to start to curl and become a mess, and it will tear, and you won't be able to roll your roll. So you just want to make sure that that rice is mostly even covered and goes all the way to the edge on 3 of the 4 sides. So we got looking pretty good here. And it doesn't really matter if you have a little bit of green showing through. Again, it's generally going to be fine because it is going on the inside. You just want to make sure it's even. So that's kind of what we're looking at there. Pretty nice. And now what we want to do is start to add our fillings. So I am going to start with my salmon. When you're filling your sushi roll, you want to not put your ingredients right at the bottom. You want to kind of find the center of where your rice is and go like half an inch down. So I'm going to take this salmon and I'm going to extend it just out past the edge of the roll too by, quarter of an inch to half an inch. That's going to help us cut later on. And I'm just going to take a couple pieces of the salmon, overlap like so. And again, I'll show you here. You can see I'm not putting the salmon right at the bottom. I'm putting it just sort of south of center, which is exactly what we want. Now I'm going to take some of the cucumber that we cut, and I'm going to lay just a few strips of that down. Make it look pretty. If you had some avocado, this would be the time to add your avocado. Be very, very perfect, beautiful. If you wanted to do this like a spicy salmon roll, you could add some of your spicy mayo in here. You could use some of that chili oil that we carry that's really great for this. There's a lot of different ways you could fill this, but you want to make sure you're not overfilling the roll. You want to fill it kind of just enough, especially if you're just learning. The more you fill the roll, the harder it's going to be to roll. So we've got this all set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers again into my water and just dip them very gently and kind of shake off any excess. Now I'm going to take my fingers and just lightly rub them along the edge of the nori. And what that's going to do is it's going to help us seal the roll. You want to make sure it's not too wet, otherwise it's going to start to crumble and fall apart. But now what I'm going to do is take my 2 fingers, my index finger and my thumb, and I'm going to use that to lift up on my mat, and I'm going to use my other fingers to hold in my fillings. So I'm going to tuck that in, I'm going to roll this over like so, and then I'm going to take my mat and just sort of tuck everything in place, and then I'm going to continue to roll like so. And we have ourselves a salmon roll. Now you never really know if the roll is going to hold until you pull the mat away. So there's always the big reveal. Let's see how we did. And perfect. We have ourselves a really nice looking salmon roll right here. So I'm going to let this sit for a minute, and we're going to do one more roll. A little bit of a different style this time. We're going to do what's called an inside out roll, which starts basically the same. I'm going to use my nori. I'm going to go ahead, again, shiny side, rough side, and I'm going to cut about an inch off the top. Again, you can save this, eat this as a snack. You can do a lot of different things with it. But now what I'm going to do is, instead of having the rough side facing up, again, we always want the shiny side facing out, so we're actually going to put the rice on the shiny side. So I'm going to put that shiny side up. I'm going to dip my hands again. I'm going to take my rice, and I'm going to this time go all the way to the edge on all 4 sides, like so. And when you're doing it, you kind of just want to fan the rice and push the rice with your fingers. You don't want to smash the rice. You want that texture to stay intact. So again, I'm just going to kind of fan this out as best as possible. If you need more water on your fingers, if the rice feels like it's starting to stick, go ahead and do that. And again, we're just looking to fan it, not smash it, like so. And all the way to the edge. Just like before, we also don't want our rice layer too thick, but because the rice is on the outside this time, we do want to try to make sure that any seaweed that's showing through or any of that nori that's showing through gets covered. So I'm going to just kind of do some patchwork here where it seems appropriate. And now we've got our rice completely covered, like so. This is exactly what we're looking for. And this time, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I've got some beautiful orange Masago here. You probably see this a lot in sushi restaurants, used as decoration and garnish. Doesn't add a lot of flavor, but it does add texture. Now, around these parts, we frequently refer to this as fish glitter, because much like real glitter, it has a tendency to get everywhere. But it is very pretty, and it adds a little bit of texture. So this will give you a little bit of pop on the outside. We just want to get like a decent coating. Again, this is just mostly aesthetics. You could also use sesame seeds instead of Masago. That would be absolutely fine. We go ahead, just clean off my hands. So now kind of comes the tricky part on this roll, and that's the flip, because we need the ingredients to go on the other side. So what you want to do is grab your rice by the corner, grab your nori by the corners, and really just do a 1, 2, 3 flip. You want to be very, very, very confident about this, because if you hold the nori halfway, that the weight of the rice could fall, and it could pull rice off, or it could tear the nori, and then you have to start all over again. So we really just want to go 1, 2, 3, flip. You can see that that kind of did that, but we're good. And that's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to be flipping back and forth if you don't have to. You just want to do that one nice, confident flip. And then I'm going to take some more of our tuna here. And again, I'm not putting it in the bottom. I'm putting it just a little bit shy of the center. I'm going to just go ahead and use the rest of the salmon that I cut. And let's go to some more of our cucumber. And this will roll exactly like the other roll, except this time we don't have to use water to seal the edges, because the rice is actually going to seal the roll for us. So it's very, very, very simple. If you wanted to, you could put saran wrap over your bamboo mat to help make cleanup a little easier. I don't really ever have a problem with the rice sticking to the mat, so I don't usually do it. But same thing, so fingers, thumb, index finger, pinch the roll, lift up, and then with your other fingers, we're gonna hold in those fillings and just wrap this over, tuck in those ingredients, and then continue to roll. And we've got ourselves a beautiful inside out roll. Now the inside out roll, one of the trickier parts of this is actually cutting the roll. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But we've got this nice, perfectly sealed roll. Excellent. And I'm going to set this off to the side. So now our sushi is ready to cut and plate. So what I am going to do is first wipe down my knife blade, make sure it's good and clean, and I'm going to go ahead and give it another quick honing. If you have a steel at home, this is a great time to use it. Again, the sharper your knife is, the easier it's going to be to cut this roll. Now the trick to cutting sushi is to try to cut it with as few as cuts as possible. Ideally, you get one nice clean cut through. Now I know this knife won't do that. It's just not sharp enough. So it's going to take me exactly 2 cuts to get through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my first cut. I'm not going to move the knife, but then I'm going to rock it back to cut through. Because again, we don't want to smash the rice or crush the rice. We want to make sure we're cutting cleanly through the grains. So I'm going to go very simply 1, 2. And we've got ourselves a beautiful filled salmon roll. Now we want to continue this by cutting the roll in half again, like so, and just keep cutting the pieces in half. This is going to help keep your rice, your sushi pieces mostly uniform, which is exactly what you want. We want nice kind of bite-sized pieces here. So we've got our first roll cut. So I'm gonna go ahead and move these off to the side. And now we're gonna cut our next roll. Now for this, because the rice is on the outside, it's much harder to cut. So what I definitely recommend doing here, this is where I do use a little bit of plastic wrap. I'm gonna take a sheet of plastic wrap, if I can get it right, and I'm gonna place it over the roll. Now the plastic wrap is gonna give our knife a place to start cutting before it hits the roll, so it makes it a little bit easier to cut. Now again, you can see the starch buildup on my knife, so I wanna go ahead and wipe that off because that starch is gonna wanna stick to the rice. And again, when you go to cut, if that starch sticks to the rice, it's gonna pull the rice off the outside of that roll, which is exactly what we don't want. So I've got my plastic wrap. I'm gonna go ahead and find the center, and just like before, we're gonna try to do this in 2 straight cuts. So 1, 2. And we've got our really nice sushi roll there. And again, we're just gonna keep cutting in half, in half. And if you have to stop and cut your knife, again, because that starch builds up pretty quickly, especially when the rice is on the outside, go ahead and keep wiping your blade down as needed. And we have ourselves a sushi roll. Go ahead and just remove this plastic, like so. And now we want a plate. So what I'm gonna do, sort of clean up a little bit here, move some of my roll back. And I have a serving platter, for which I am going to use to plate my sushi. So I've got my kind of end pieces here. And let's just go ahead and do this sort of like so. And you can do this a lot of different ways. There's all kinds of fun plating videos that you could find online for doing sushi. Go ahead and plate my roll here, like so. And we are going to wind up with a very beautiful platter of sushi. So now what we want to do, again, my fish glitter is getting everywhere. So I've got my sushi, now I've got my wasabi. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a little dab of wasabi right here in the middle, like so. I've also got some of our pickled ginger, which I will just grab a bit of, shake off some of the excess juice. I'm gonna put that right down next to the wasabi. And our soy sauce, I've got a little cup for my soy sauce here. So I'm just gonna fill this like so. And we have ourselves an extremely beautiful sushi setup. Very easy to do. Again, everything on this platter is available online, except the cucumber. So whatever you need, we got you. Definitely place your orders now. Guys, this is beautiful. Tell me you don't want to eat that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful looking sushi. And very easy to make. Highly recommend giving this a try at home. If for some reason you're trying it and you're getting frustrated, it's not working out, you can throw it all into a bowl and just have a sushi bowl. It's fail safe. Do it anytime, super good, super easy, and very, very, very delicious. Just a few little words on updates around the store. You see the stay in place order has been put out there, which goes into effect tomorrow. So to let you know what's happening, we are going to be open still, just like we were before. We're grocery, so we are able to stay open for curbside pickup and delivery. Definitely take advantage of those delivery orders. It's a great way to do it. We've had super positive response to that so far. So definitely put in those orders that way. Again, All of this stuff is available up online. The rice, the sushi vinegar, the soy sauce, the ginger, the wasabi, the nori. It's all there ready to go. So you can go place your order and have it delivered directly to you. Or if you want, you can place your order for pickup. We are still doing curbside pickup, and we will continue to do that. So thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed the little sushi tutorial today. Again, we're very excited to get back to doing sushi classes, so we'll let you know when that comes back around. Otherwise, we will be back tomorrow with something fun and new. I have some good ideas for us, so definitely pay attention to that. Otherwise, like, comment, share on this video. Let me know any questions you have. Let your friends know that we've been doing this, because it's been a blast. Otherwise, we will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.